Admiral Hannah Park stood before the holographic projection, her expression carefully controlled despite the rage building inside her. The Galactic Council representative, a tall Centaurian with silvery skin, had just delivered what amounted to an ultimatum. Earth must surrender all advanced technology and accept status as a protected species. The Council has determined that humanity's technological progression rate presents an unacceptable risk to galactic stability, the Centaurian stated flatly. Hannah's eyes narrowed. And if we refuse, then containment measures will be implemented for the greater good. The transmission ended with a soft click, leaving Hannah alone in the dim light of Earth's primary communication chamber. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. The Centaurian's words echoed in her mind. Containment measures, a polite term for what would essentially be genocide. Within the hour, Hannah sat at the large round table in Earth's Crisis Command Center. The room buzzed with tension as Earth's leadership assembled. Defense Minister Jun Kim paced back and forth before suddenly slamming his fist on the table. "This is extortion. They fear our progress, nothing more," he shouted, his face flushed with anger. Intelligence Director Suman Lee remained calm as she slid a data tablet forward. "We've intercepted communications. The Council has been sabotaging our colony ships and trade routes for decades." The room fell silent as everyone accessed the data. Images of destroyed human vessels, corrupted navigation systems, and falsified trade agreements filled their screens. For years, the mysterious failures and accidents have been attributed to human error or technical problems. Now the truth was clear. They had been targeted all along. President Tae-woo Choi studied the information, his weathered face showing every year of his long service. "We're outmatched militarily, but surrender isn't an option." "They've given us 72 hours to respond," Hannah noted. "That's barely enough time to organize an evacuation of our most vulnerable colonies, let alone mount any kind of defense." Admiral Kang, head of Earth's modest space fleet, pulled up tactical displays. "If we consolidate our forces around Earth and Mars, we might hold out for a few weeks. But the Council's combined fleet outnumbers us 20 to 1. The room grew quiet again as each person contemplated the impossible choice before them. Surrender meant the end of human advancement, a future as pets of the Galactic Council. Resistance meant certain destruction. Hannah's secure tablet suddenly pinged with a classified notification. The small sound seemed to echo in the silent room. She tapped the screen and scanned the contents, her eyes widening slightly. "There may be another option," she said quietly. "Project Prometheus." President Choi frowned. "I've never heard of it." "That was intentional, Mr. President," Hannah replied. After the first signs of Council interference 5 years ago, a small group of scientists and military personnel began working on a contingency plan. It was kept off all official records. "You operated without authorization?" Defense Minister Kim asked sharply. Hannah met his gaze. "With all due respect, Minister, we had reason to believe that Council spies had infiltrated our government. The project needed absolute secrecy." "What exactly is Project Prometheus?" Suman Lee asked. Hannah tapped on her tablet, and a new hologram appeared above the table. It showed a complex web of code and technical specifications. "It's not a weapon in the traditional sense," Hannah explained. "The Council has always underestimated human ingenuity. They see us as technologically inferior because we don't have their advanced energy systems or faster-than-light capabilities. But our strength lies elsewhere." The hologram shifted to show what looked like microscopic machines. "Nanites?" President Choi asked. "Advanced beyond anything the Council has seen," Hannah confirmed. "Combined with specialized AI systems that can adapt to and infiltrate alien technology." Defense Minister Kim leaned forward. "You're suggesting we can hack their systems?" "More than that," Hannah said. "We can turn their technology against them." A spark of hope flickered in the room for the first time since the ultimatum had arrived. "How quickly can it be deployed?" asked the president. "That's the problem," Hannah admitted. The system needs to be uploaded directly to the Council's central network hub. Someone would have to physically infiltrate their headquarters. The room erupted in discussion again. The Council headquarters, a massive space station at the center of Council territory, was the most heavily guarded location in the galaxy. It would be a suicide mission, Admiral Kang stated flatly. Hana nodded. Likely, yes, but it may be our only chance. President Choi stood up slowly. We need time to consider all options. Admiral Park, assemble a small team of our best officers. If we decide to proceed with Prometheus, they'll need to be ready immediately. As the meeting disbanded, Suman Lee pulled Hana aside. You didn't tell them everything, she said quietly. Hana glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. No, the full scope of Prometheus would only frighten them at this stage. If it works as designed, it won't just disable their weapons. Suman whispered, it will give us control of their entire infrastructure, every ship, every station, every colony. We could bring the Council to its knees. Hana nodded gravely, which is why we must be absolutely certain before we deploy it. If we become the very thing we're fighting against, what will we have won? Later that night, alone in her quarters, Hana reviewed the profiles of officers who might join the mission. If they decided to activate Prometheus, she would lead the team herself. She thought of Earth's colonies, of the families who had built lives among the stars, unaware they now faced extinction. She remembered her own family, lost years ago when their transport ship suffered a navigational failure, now revealed as Council sabotage. Hana closed her eyes. The Council had left them no choice. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. The alarm sirens blared across the Martian colony of New Olympus. Red emergency lights flashed as colonists rushed toward shelter bunkers. The orbital defense grid had detected the Council warships far too late. They had used some kind of advanced cloaking technology that Earth's sensors couldn't penetrate. All civilians to emergency shelters. This is not a drill. The automated announcement repeated in multiple languages as people ran through the dome's main corridors. In the colony's command center, Governor Gina Wang watched the incoming ships with horror. How many? She asked her security chief. 7 warships, Governor. Class A destroyers. They're powering weapons. Gina hit the emergency broadcast button. Attention Council vessels. We are a civilian colony. We have no military presence here. Please respond. Her message went unanswered. The first strike hit the colony's main power station. The blast shook the entire dome structure. The second and third strikes targeted the atmosphere generators. Within minutes, warning alarms indicated critical failures in the colony's life support systems. They're not trying to conquer us, Gina realized as she watched the methodical destruction. This is extermination. The attack lasted only 17 minutes. When it ended, 12,000 colonists were dead. The Council vessels departed without ever sending a single communication. They had made their point. On Earth, news of the Mars colony attack spread quickly. Angry crowds gathered outside government buildings. Some demanded immediate surrender to prevent further attacks. Others called for all-out war, regardless of the odds. In a secure hangar beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Hana Park reviewed her small team. 6 of Earth's best officers stood before her, each chosen for specific skills. They would be the only ones to know the full details of their mission. The stealth vessel Defiant waited nearby, a sleek black ship unlike anything in Earth's official fleet. It incorporated salvaged alien technology, modified by Earth scientists over the past decade. It was invisible to most scanning systems, though for how long remained uncertain. President Choi entered the hangar, flanked by security officers who remained at a distance to ensure privacy. We're announcing that Earth is considering the Council's terms, he told Hana quietly. Our diplomats will stall for as long as possible, appearing hesitant but moving toward surrender. This should buy you time. Hana nodded. How long can you reasonably delay? 4 days at most. After that, they'll grow suspicious. The president's face showed the strain of recent events. The Prometheus Protocol is our only hope, Admiral. If your mission fails, I understand the stakes, Mr. President. President Choi handed her a small data crystal. This contains the authorization codes only to be used if your mission succeeds. Good luck, Admiral. The future of our species rests with you. After the president left, Hannah boarded the Defiant with her team. Commander Do-Yeon Kang, her second-in-command, was already at the ship's tactical station, reviewing intercepted Council communications. The Council is celebrating already, he noted with disgust, showing her the data stream. Listen to this. Hannah watched as various Council species exchanged messages, mocking what they called primitive humans, and discussing how Earth's territories would be divided once the surrender was complete. The Zentari are already claiming mining rights to our outer colonies, Do-Hyun pointed out, and the Vex hegemony wants control of our agricultural worlds. Lieutenant Minji Han, their communications specialist, looked up from her station. They're speaking about us as if we're already defeated. Pride comes before a fall, Hannah replied calmly. Let them celebrate. It will make our task easier. The Defiant launched silently, accelerating quickly out of Earth's atmosphere. Using a series of short, precisely calculated jumps through subspace, they began the dangerous journey to the Council's central hub station, a massive structure located at the center of Council territory. For 3 days, they traveled in near-complete silence, running with minimal power to avoid detection. The crew slept in shifts, always maintaining full alertness at critical stations. They passed through 2 separate patrol zones, using outdated security codes obtained through intelligence operations. On the 4th day, they reached the outer security perimeter of the Council hub. The massive station loomed ahead, a sprawling structure nearly the size of Earth's moon, with countless ships docking and departing in carefully coordinated patterns. How do we get in? Asked Lieutenant Kyung-ba, their security specialist. Even with our stealth capabilities, we can't just dock without authorization. Hannah frowned. Their plan relied on using one of the maintenance entrances, but the security around the station appeared even tighter than their intelligence had suggested. Suddenly, Minji called out from communications. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's being directed specifically at our ship. That's impossible, Do-Hyun said. Our stealth systems are active. No one should know we're here. Put it through, Hannah ordered, her hand moving to her sidearm. A voice came through the ship's speakers, speaking in a hushed tone. Human vessel, this is Delegate Kezar of the Andorian Confederation. Do not respond verbally. I am transmitting on a secure frequency that is routinely overlooked by Council security. The crew exchanged nervous glances. The Andorians were Council members, though not particularly powerful ones. I am aware of your presence and your likely purpose, the voice continued. Not all Council species support the actions taken against Earth. The Mars attack was an atrocity that violated our most basic principles. I am transmitting a set of access codes to the Council's networks. Use them wisely. Data began streaming into their system. Minji quickly verified it. Admiral, these appear to be genuine high-level access codes, she confirmed. Why would you help us? Hannah asked, breaking the instruction not to respond. There was a pause before Kezar answered. Because today it is humans who face extinction. Tomorrow it could be Andorians or any species that the Council deems inconvenient. This must end. The transmission ended abruptly. Hannah turned to her crew, seeing both hope and apprehension on their faces. Check those codes thoroughly before we use them, she ordered. It could be a trap. Do-Hyun nodded grimly. And if it's not? If these codes are real? Then, Hannah said, studying the massive station ahead, we just received our first bit of luck in this entire mission. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a laboratory hidden inside an abandoned mining facility, Dr. Ju Yoon stood before a group of officials. The room hummed with the sound of powerful computers. Blue light from dozens of screens cast strange shadows across worried faces. "This is the heart of Project Prometheus," Ju said, gesturing to a central console. Behind her, a glass chamber contained what looked like shimmering liquid metal. "It doesn't look like much," said General Park, one of the observers. Ju smiled slightly. "It's not a weapon in the conventional sense," she explained. "It's an adaptive AI system capable of infiltrating and reprogramming alien technology." She tapped a series of commands on her screen. The liquid metal began to move, forming complex patterns. "The Council believes their technology is superior to ours," Ju continued. "They're partly right. We don't have their energy systems or faster-than-light travel capabilities. But human computer science and artificial intelligence have developed along different paths." The liquid metal separated into thousands of tiny droplets, each moving independently. "These nanobots contain the most advanced AI systems we've ever created. Each one is smaller than a grain of sand, but capable of entering electronic systems, learning their architecture, and rewriting their core functions." Defense Minister Jun Kim frowned. "If this technology is so powerful, why haven't we used it before?" "Because until now, we've never faced extinction," Ju replied simply. "The Prometheus Protocol was designed as our last resort. Once activated, it cannot be controlled or stopped. It will spread through Council systems like a virus, reprogramming everything it touches." "And what will it program these systems to do?" asked Minister Kim. Ju's expression grew serious. "Whatever Admiral Park commands when she uploads the activation codes." Meanwhile, billions of kilometers away, Hannah's team moved cautiously through the corridors of the Council's central station. The access codes provided by Delegate Kezer had allowed their ship to dock in a maintenance bay, listed in the station's systems as a routine supply vessel. "Security checkpoint ahead," whispered Lieutenant Min-Ho Ba, their point man. 4 guards, mixed species." Hannah nodded. "Standard infiltration. Non-lethal if possible." Their mission was not one of revenge but survival. Each team member carried specialized stun weapons designed to work on multiple species. They moved swiftly, disabling the guards before alarms could be triggered. As they advanced deeper into the station, Captain Jihai Kang released the first batch of nanobots. The tiny machines looked like metallic dust in the air. They floated toward ventilation systems and power conduits, disappearing inside. "First deployment successful," Jai confirmed. "The bots are mapping the local network architecture." The team continued through the massive station, staying to maintenance corridors and service tunnels. Occasionally, they encountered station workers or security patrols. Some they avoided, others they were forced to neutralize. "The central communication hub is 3 levels up," Commander Do-hyun reported, checking their position against the station schematics. "But security gets much heavier from here." Hannah checked her timepiece. "Earth's diplomats are scheduled to submit preliminary surrender terms in 6 hours. We need to reach the hub before then." They found a service elevator and ascended cautiously. When the doors opened, they faced a patrol of 8 armed council guards. The firefight was brief but intense. The team's stun weapons proved effective, but one guard managed to trigger an alarm before falling. "We need to move," Hannah ordered as red warning lights began to flash in the corridor. "Deploy another nanobot batch and let's go." They ran through increasingly crowded corridors, occasionally forced to fight their way through security checkpoints. During one particularly fierce exchange, Lieutenant Min-Ho Ba placed himself between Hannah and incoming fire. He fell, his body absorbing multiple energy blasts meant for her. "Leave me," he gasped as Hannah knelt beside him. "Complete the mission." With heavy hearts, they continued forward. At a major junction, they encountered a full security team. Captain Jihai Kang created a diversion, drawing fire while the others advanced. She took a serious wound but managed to secure their escape route. "I'll hold this position," she told Hannah, pressing a hand against her bleeding side. "Go. I'll be fine." In the Council's Grand Chamber, Supreme Counselor Sel addressed the gathered delegates. The massive circular room hosted representatives from all 57 council species. Massive view screens showed the progress of Earth's diplomatic team, currently being escorted to a meeting room several levels below. The humans will submit, or they will be contained, Zell declared, his forearms raised in a traditional gesture of authority. Their potential threat will be neutralized either way. Many delegates nodded in agreement. A few, including the Andorian representative, remained noticeably silent. "The human delegation appears prepared to accept our terms," said Vice Chancellor Traz. "They understand their position is hopeless." Nevertheless, Zell continued, "We must maintain full security protocols until the surrender is complete. Humanity's unpredictable nature remains a concern." At that moment, a junior officer rushed into the chamber, approaching Zell urgently. After a brief, hushed conversation, Zell's expression darkened. "Security alert," he announced. "Intruders have been detected in the station's restricted areas. All delegates will remain here for their safety while security handles the situation." Back in the station's corridors, Hannah's team, now reduced to 4, fought their way toward their objective. They deployed the final batches of nanobots at strategic points, watching as the tiny machines disappeared into the station's systems. "The bots are spreading through all connected networks," reported their tech specialist. "Once we reach the hub and upload the activation codes, the Prometheus protocol will have full access to the Council's entire information infrastructure." Bleeding from a minor wound and exhausted from hours of fighting, Hannah led her remaining team members to a heavily secured door. Beyond it lay the central communication hub, the heart of the Council's information network. "Last obstacle," Doyun said, examining the door's security system. "This will take time to bypass." "Time we don't have," Hannah replied, noticing reinforcements approaching on nearby security monitors. She pulled out the special access device Ju had given her before they left Earth. "Stand back." The device connected to the door's security panel, running billions of code combinations in seconds. With a soft hiss, the massive door slid open, revealing a vast chamber filled with advanced computer systems. "Secure the room," Hannah ordered as they rushed inside. Her remaining team members took positions at the entrances while she approached the central console. The chamber's walls were lined with screens showing data from across the galaxy. This was where all Council communications were processed, where all their systems connected. It was the perfect insertion point for the Prometheus protocol. As Doyun sealed the main door behind them, Hannah removed a small crystal from a hidden pocket in her uniform. Everything, Earth's future, humanity's survival, depended on what would happen in the next few minutes. Hannah stood before the Council's central terminal, the quantum key held firmly in her hand. The room's blue lights reflected off its crystalline surface as alarms blared throughout the station. Outside the sealed doors, security forces were attempting to break through. "We have maybe 2 minutes before they override the security locks," Doyun warned, his weapon trained on the main entrance. Hannah nodded, her expression calm despite the chaos around them. This exact moment, would determine the future of humanity. She inserted the quantum key into the central terminal. "Prometheus protocol activated," she confirmed as the system recognized the key. The terminal pulsed with light, accepting the command. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the screens around them flickered. Lines of code raced across displays faster than any human eye could follow. The nanobots they had released throughout the station were connecting, communicating, infiltrating deeper into the Council's systems. "It's working," whispered their tech specialist, watching the data flow. "The protocol is spreading through their network." Across Council space, the effects began almost instantly. On the massive warship Dominance, preparing to lead the fleet to Earth if surrender negotiations failed, Captain Vrex watched in horror as his control systems suddenly went dark. "Engineering. Report," he shouted into the communication system. No response came. Every screen on the bridge displayed the same message. "System override." Similar scenes played out on hundreds of Council vessels. Defense systems powered down. Communication arrays broadcast only static. Weapons platforms turned against their operators. On dozens of Council worlds, power grids fluctuated. Transportation systems stopped. Security barriers activated unexpectedly, trapping people in buildings and stations. In the Council's Grand Chamber, panic erupted as the room's systems failed. The massive doors sealed themselves, trapping the delegates inside. The environmental controls shifted, making the air uncomfortably warm for most species. Supreme Counselor Cell attempted to use his emergency authority codes to restore order, but the systems no longer recognized his commands. The large display screens that normally showed galactic maps and data suddenly activated on their own. Hannah's face appeared on every screen throughout the chamber. Her expression was calm but firm as she looked directly at the assembled delegates. "What have you done?" demanded Excel, his voice rising in anger and fear. "We've removed your technological advantage," she replied evenly. "And now all species will know the truth." The screens shifted to display images, documents, and recorded communications, all evidence of the Council's long campaign of sabotage against human development. The delegates watched as their own leaders discussed methods to limit human expansion, authorized attacks on colony ships, and deliberately contaminated trade goods. "For decades, you've worked to keep humanity contained," Hannah continued. "You've sabotaged our ships, undermined our colonies, and killed our people, all while pretending to welcome us as equals in galactic society." The evidence was undeniable. Some delegates looked away in shame. Others watched with growing horror as their government's actions were exposed. "Yesterday, you destroyed our Mars colony, killing 12,000 civilians. You called it a limited demonstration strike. We call it what it is: genocide." In the chamber, many delegates turned to Excel with questioning eyes. The attack on Mars had been presented to them as a response to human aggression, not as an unprovoked strike against civilians. "The humans are manipulating these records," Cell shouted. "This is propaganda." But the evidence continued to mount on the screens. Council ships attacking defenseless human vessels, sabotage operations against human infrastructure, secret meetings where Council leaders discussed the human problem. Across the galactic communication network, the same evidence was being broadcast to every world, every station, every ship. Species that had trusted the Council's leadership for centuries were seeing the truth behind its actions. From the neutral territories, reactions came swiftly. The Arcturus Federation, long suspicious of Council power, issued an immediate statement supporting Earth. The Proxima Republic followed shortly after. Within hours, 3 other significant powers, the Tau Alliance, the Rigel Concordat, and the Sirius Coalition, declared their support for humanity. Back on the Council station, security forces finally broke through to the communication hub. They rushed in with weapons ready, only to find that Hannah and her team had sealed themselves in the central control area behind impenetrable energy shields, barriers created by the Council's own technology, now turned to protect the humans. "You cannot escape," said the security commander. "Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Hannah simply smiled. "You still don't understand. We're not trying to escape." Throughout the station, more systems fell under Prometheus control. Life support remained stable, but weapons were disabled. Communication was limited to emergency channels. Transport systems operated only for civilian evacuation. In the Council chamber, the delegates' personal communication devices activated simultaneously. Each received the same message, a list of demands from Earth. Vice Chancellor Traz studied the demands with growing alarm. They want the complete restructuring of the Council, equal representation for all species, full investigation of past actions against Earth, reparations for damages caused. "These demands are absurd," Cell sputtered. "We cannot." "We have no choice," interrupted the Andorian delegate, speaking for the first time. "Look at the situation. They control our systems. They have exposed our actions to every species in the galaxy. and they have the support of 5 major powers from the neutral territories. Delegate Kezar of the Andorians stood, addressing the entire chamber. For too long, the Council has operated on fear. Fear of new species, fear of losing power, fear of change. That fear led us to betray our own principles, to sabotage and kill those we should have welcomed. Many delegates nodded in agreement, their earlier panic giving way to shame and resolution. The humans could have used this technology to destroy us completely, Kezar continued. They could have turned off life support on our ships, disabled our colony shields, erased our data networks. Instead, they chose only to expose the truth and remove our ability to harm them. Does that sound like the dangerous species we've been taught to fear? From her position in the control hub, Hannah watched the council chamber through security feeds. The delegates were arguing among themselves, some still calling for resistance, others urging acceptance of Earth's terms. "Do you think they'll agree?" Do-hyun asked quietly. "They have no choice," Hannah replied. "The Prometheus Protocol has given us control of their entire infrastructure. They can fight us and lose everything, or they can negotiate and build something better." On her screen, she could see the delegates beginning to vote. One by one, they were choosing the future. 2 weeks after the activation of the Prometheus Protocol, the largest gathering of alien species in galactic history assembled in the newly renamed Unity Station. Once the seat of council power, the massive space station had been transformed. The Grand Chamber, once reserved for only council members, now held representatives from 57 spacefaring civilizations. Hannah stood at the central podium, her admiral's uniform replaced with the formal diplomatic attire of Earth's representative. The chamber buzzed with conversation in dozens of languages as species that had once been enemies or strangers now sat side by side. "Order, please," called the temporary chairperson, an Andorian diplomat. The room gradually quieted as all eyes turned to Hannah. 2 weeks ago, humanity faced extinction. Hannah began, her voice calm but firm. "Today, we gather to ensure no species ever faces such a threat again." She activated a holographic display showing the proposed structure for galactic governance. "The terms are non-negotiable," she stated. "The current council structure will be dissolved. A new galactic assembly will be formed with equal representation for all species." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Most delegates nodded in agreement, but some of the former council species showed clear displeasure. Supreme Councilor Excel, seated now in a regular delegate's chair instead of his former elevated position, stood abruptly. His once ornate robes of office had been replaced with simpler attire, his authority now merely symbolic. "You cannot dictate terms, Toe," he began, his voice sharp with indignation. "We could have destroyed every piece of technology in council space," interrupted engineer Sun Woo-choi, stepping forward from behind Hannah. The young engineer had been part of the team that created the Prometheus Protocol. The system was deliberately limited in scope. "We chose restraint." Sun Woo activated another display, showing the full capabilities of the Prometheus system. The room fell silent as the delegates realized just how vulnerable they had been. The nanobots could have permanently disabled life support systems on every council world, Sun Woo explained. They could have erased all data networks, destroyed navigation systems, turned defensive weapons against your own ships and stations. Instead, they were programmed only to temporarily disable military systems and expose the truth. Zell slowly sat down, the fight visibly draining from him. An elder Zentari, once among the council's most aggressive species, spoke next. "Why? Why show mercy when you held such power?" Hannah looked across the chamber, meeting the eyes of various delegates before answering. "Because domination is not our goal. Creating a better system is. One where technological advantage doesn't give any species the right to control others. One where cooperation replaces competition." Over the following months, the new Galactic Assembly took shape. The transition was not always smooth. Centuries of council rule had created deep divisions and prejudices that could not be erased overnight. Several former Council species attempted to form a rival power block, but without their technological advantage, they found little support. Earth representatives worked tirelessly during this period. They shared technological breakthroughs to help rebuild damaged infrastructure. Human diplomats mediated disputes between species that had never before communicated directly. Scientists collaborated with alien researchers to solve problems that had plagued certain worlds for generations. The Prometheus Protocol remained active but increasingly dormant. As trust grew between species, the nanobots gradually returned control of systems to their rightful operators. Only critical security functions remained under the protocol's oversight, ensuring no single species could again seize military dominance. 6 months after the Council's fall, the new assembly station was completed. Built in neutral space between major territories, it symbolized the new balance of power. Unlike the old Council station with its hierarchy of access and privilege, the new station was designed for equality and transparency. In her private quarters on the new assembly station, Hannah stood by the viewport, looking out at the stars. On her desk sat a small memorial, a simple crystal cube containing the names and images of those who had fallen during the mission. Lieutenant Minho Ba, Captain Jai Kang, and others who had sacrificed their lives so humanity could survive. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Commander Do-Yun Kang, now Earth's chief of security for the assembly. "They're waiting for you," he said. "The first official session is about to begin." Hannah nodded but didn't move immediately from the window. "Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing," she said quietly. "What do you mean?" "We had the power to destroy them completely. After what they did to us, to Mars, to all our sabotage colonies, some would say they deserved it." Do-Yun joined her at the window. "We could have sought vengeance," he acknowledged. "Instead, we chose justice. Is there a difference?" he asked after a moment. She nodded slowly. "Vengeance would have destroyed them. Justice gives us all a chance to build something better." They stood in silence for a moment, watching as ships from dozens of worlds moved peacefully around the station. Species that had once been bitter enemies now worked side by side. It wasn't perfect. Nothing involving so many different cultures and interests could be, but it was progress. A notification chimed. The first session of the new Galactic Assembly was about to begin, with representatives from all worlds taking their equal places at the table. "It's time," Do-Yun said. As they walked toward the Grand Chamber, they passed delegates from numerous species. Some nodded respectfully to Hannah, others still regarded her with caution. The memory of human power was still fresh. "Do you think it will last?" Do-Yun asked as they approached the chamber doors. "This peace we've created." "I don't know," Hannah admitted. "But for the first time, all species have an equal voice, an equal chance. That's worth fighting for." They entered the chamber just as the session was called to order. The former enemies and rivals, predators and prey, conquerors and conquered, all seated as equals around the great circular table. No species elevated above others. No power holding dominion over the rest. Hannah took her seat, not at the head of the table, for there was no head, only equal positions in the circle. As the assembly began its work, she felt a sense of completion. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged not just surviving, but helping to build something better for all. The stars continued their eternal dance outside the station windows, witnessing the birth of a new era in galactic history. The end.